Here's a demonstration of the newest version of my popular extension controllers for sound devices 8 series recorders. I make 3 different models that all work with every recorder in the lineup. This is the compact ID.TF6, a tune-up multifunctional controller that has its own demonstration video that you can check out if you want. This video is about the new ID.TF6 Plus, which is made to fit an 833, and the ID.TF8 Plus, made to fit an 888. For the sake of this demonstration, I will use my own 888 with a TF8 Plus attached to it. But everything I tell you here applies to the 6-channel version as well. Only, of course, the channel layout is fitting the amount of knobs on the controller. So what is this? It's a multifunctional MIDI controller with high quality encoders, no clicking detents or anything, just smooth to the feel and silent. The fact that there are endless encoders opens up many possibilities for what a controller can do, and so I have made a firmware that will interact deeply with these specific mixers in a way that I find very logical and easy to use. First things first, the controller comes with 2 different mounting options. There's one that attaches directly to the mixer, either on top or on the bottom, as you prefer. The mount has 2 positions, so it can sit higher or lower depending on how you like it. Maybe you only need this controller once in a while, so there's also this style mount included, which will clip onto a back divider or the edge of a card or whatever. First time you boot the controller, you're prompted to select a mixer model. This is to ensure that the controller sets itself up to present the right channels. Now the controller is booting, or rather waiting, for the 8 series to fully boot and be ready to receive instructions from the controller. During this time you can set a brightness level for the LEDs to suit your environment. LEDs use power, so set it low if you can. Now the controller is ready to use for the extra channels. The idea here is we have channels 1 to 8 on the mixer, and then we continue with channels 9 to 16 on the controller. When I turn a knob, you will see the volume indicator move on the LEDs as well as on the 8 series display. If I then want to adjust the gain for this channel, all I have to do is press while I'm turning and then release. And then it's back to fader mode. You could also just press quickly on the encoder to open the channel page. The controller now indicates that we're in trim mode for channel 11. The channel page is available and I can do trim adjustments. If I press again, we're back in fader mode. Don't exit the channel page with the mixer like I do here. As you see, the controller still thinks that we're in trim mode for channel 11, so always enter and exit with the controller. Personally, I think this press and turn method of adjusting the gain is perfect, but if you need access to the channel page for EQing or something like that, just remember to exit via the controller again. Now this mixer actually has more than 16 channels available because I purchased the Plus 4 plugin for the 888. So how do we access those extra channels? To select another controller bank, you have to press and turn the rightmost encoder and you can now browse all the available controller banks. I select 13 to 20 just by releasing the knob. Now I have channels 13 to 20 at my fingertips. If you just turn the rightmost encoder, you'll see a little M, which stands for Master Fader. In the 8 series third-party controller menu, you can set which bus or output the master fader should control. This could be for an IFB or a PA feed or whatever you like. You can also just not select anything, in which case it won't do anything. Okay, so let's dive into the menu by pressing the rightmost encoder. Before we go further, let me briefly tell you how to navigate the menu. You scroll, press to enter, and long press to go back. There's also always a menu point to go back, but the long press is the superior way. You can also always exit the menu completely by pressing one of the channel encoder knobs. The first menu point is Lights. This is where to configure the LED fader indicators. Set brightness level. fader color. Here we can select the color of the fader LEDs. There's white, custom, and VU style. This is the good old green, yellow, red gradient. And custom is a little bit more advanced. Here you can select a global color for all the faders within a bank, or you can set colors individually for channels in a bank. Base color. Here you can set a fixed color for a whole bank or individual channels that always show whether the fader is turned up or down. I don't know how the end user will use these customizations, but I will tell you what I do. Let's say we have a special surprise guest coming in to our show on channel 13, and we need to be able to quickly find that channel in the heat of the moment. I will go to base color, turn channel 13 to blue, and then for the base percentage, I will select 50% as the relative brightness level for the base color. I can then quickly identify my blue channel, which is currently faded down, but when I fade it up, the LED indicator overrides with my fader color, which is white in this case. You could also set a base color for whole banks if you switch around a lot. However, the currently active bank is always shown in the display, so yeah. Further down the lights menu, you can select a variety of LED animations to show during the boot up. There's a little list to select from. Last, if you've made a mess with all the options, you can just default the lights. Next on the menu is fader speed. You can choose between 4 different fader speeds: slow, which is very slow; good, which is set to mimic roughly the amount of rotation in a regular fader potentiometer; and fast, which is my favorite. It will skip a dB here and there, but it's not audible, and I just like how fast it is. The last one is magnetic 0 dB, which is an experimental feature where a quick movement will lock the value to 0 dB or infinite, depending on the direction. You can still do micro adjustments if needed, but a quick turn will turn the fader up to 0 dB, like a flick of a switch, and down again. Use this feature at your own risk. MIDI functions. This controller can send a variety of known MIDI commands that the mixer will respond to. In addition to these, there are 8 custom MIDI functions that can be further customized in the 8 series controller menu. Let me show you how. On the mixer, navigate to Controllers, Mapping, then hit Learn, then on the controller, send a custom MIDI command. Now there's a new entry that can be opened up, and you can select a whole bunch of functions. There are too many to mention, but let's pick one of my favorites, Auto Mixer On-Off. Now what we can do is set shortcuts on the controller. So under shortcuts, you will see that we can scroll through a number of shortcuts corresponding to the number of knobs. So let's select number 4, and we will choose custom 1 that we just configured in the 8 series. Now when I press both like so, we're firing our shortcut. Auto Mixer is on. Auto Mixer is off. You can set 8 shortcuts in total on the TF8 and 6 on the TF6, but you can always send MIDI commands from the list in the controller. System. Hopefully you shouldn't need anything from this menu. There's a way to factory reset the controller. You can select another mixer model. And here is tips. Just a bunch of tips for operating the controller. I realize that not every user will see this video or read the manual, so why not include some tips on the display. Next is Pong, and that is self-explanatory. There are a couple of things to be aware of when using a controller like this. First of all, this controller communicates one way only. That means if you change a fader value with the mixer itself through the menu with SD remote, the controller will not know that you've done that. So I suggest sticking with just one method of controlling a certain channel. This only applies to fader levels. Trims are controlled in a relative fashion for the extra channels, so whatever you do doesn't really matter. But faders have an absolute value in the control protocol, so be aware of that in order to not make a sudden jump in volume. Also, this controller can control channels that already have knobs on the 8 series itself. So if you trim your channel 1 all the way down on the 8 series, then trim it up with the controller, there's a risk that at some point, especially if you reboot, the mixer will want to pull its own controls and give those precedence. So if you plan to use both at the same time, which I wouldn't recommend, just stick to one method and at least make sure that your dials are roughly on the same planet. In my opinion, the same advice goes when using SD Remote. In the 8 series controller menu, there's a setting called Soft Fader Trim Pickup. This can either work against or with you, depending on how you plan to use the whole system. So check the 8 series manual for that, and I would say if you use this controller only for the extra channels, then don't worry, be happy. That's it for now. I make these controllers in my basement workshop in Denmark when I'm not working as a sound recordist. There is a limited number available. If you have any questions, just write me an email. Thanks for watching this very long video and have a nice day.